two perspectives can be here brought out and about. One, which is more of a universal perspective, a universal view which will give some of you an idea of what perhaps this book is about. And another more personal perspective, a very intimate POV, that point of view. After all, the whole dance is always between that, personal and impersonal, infinite and finite, immanent, and that what is here, beyond space-time, never born. So perhaps this will be fitting to speak from these two perspectives, not ignoring either, not foregoing either of the perspectives. First, just a few words about perhaps the background of that what somehow, in some ways, lay the possibility for this to be given a form of a book. Traditionally speaking, there are different paths to self-realization. Different. In fact, some of them are distinctly different. Different paths. Each path follows a specific quality that is pertinent to a particular aspect of awareness, how it is experienced and lived here by each and every one of us. In other words, if we are to give this an analogy of walking up the mountain, for example, not necessarily, but for example, one can reach the summit by a well-trodden path. Everyone can do it. Everyone can proceed there based on their capacities, based on their abilities. But there are other paths. Maybe someone wants to climb that path, make a new one. Someone wants to maybe do that in such a way that from the outside it will feel as a crazy enterprise because it's life-risking event. You know, those people who climb rocks, some of them at least using the ropes, others just climb with bare hands and feet, no? But each to their own. So the different paths, each following a specific quality or specific qualities that are closer to each and everyone's temperament. It's as simple as that. Therefore, in the cultures where these investigations, we could say, into the essence of reality, into the nature of consciousness, came up with these paths and described these paths, distinguished these paths by giving and assigning them even specific terms, each of them almost having yoga of its own. For example, there is a path of intellectual way to God. Intellectual. It is through the power of the intellect. It is known as Jnana Marga, or the path of Jnana, the path of knowledge. It is the path which utilizes the scrutiny of discrimination. It discriminates, it constantly dissects, penetrates into the essence of reality through sharpness of that intellect, So therefore, it is particularly useful for those who have these capacities, who have this already in their temperament. Another path could be spoken of as being diametrically opposite to that. It's the path which follows feeling one's way to God, as they say. Feeling. It is the refinement of feeling. And in that path, it's the methodology of indiscrimination. In the path of jnana, in the path of knowledge, discrimination is the greatest asset. In the path of the heart, as it is sometimes spoken and referred to, it's indiscrimination, because the heart does not discriminate. Like the heart of the mother, it doesn't discriminate between her children. Good mother views all her kids in equal light. All of them are loved. Particularly, maybe it's more rare today and it falls maybe flat on someone's ears, but let's say in a family where there are 8 kids, all of them are different. Some are bright, others are less so. Someone may be physically really developed and all together, but another one is slightly slow, lagging behind, maybe impeded in somewhat ways. But in the eyes of the mother, all are perfect. This is the path of indiscrimination. And so it follows, these are distinctive paths to self-realization. There is a path of physiological or neurophysiological way to God. This is the path known to us today through the scriptures of Hatha Yoga. By working with the life force, working with breath, by locking the pranic currents in a certain way, positioning the body in certain asanas, honing the body endlessly to the degree that it results into a possibility of realizing the self, because the conditions then of the body, which otherwise is always subjected to tendencies, is being honed, perfected in such way that the truth shines forth. There is the path of perception. The path of perception. Sometimes referred to slightly unfavorably sounding as mechanical. What is this path? It's the path of what is already happening at all times. We don't do anything. We wake up in the morning, out of bed, and we open our eyes and we see. Perception takes place. We don't do anything to see. The same is applicable to all the other sense perceptions. We don't do anything about perceiving. Perception is granted, given. All 5 of them. It's known as yoga of perception. It is the least known to all, the least explored in modern spirituality. And yet Tantra is based on that. The Tantric way of working is known for utilizing the yoga of perception and refining that to a degree of high art. It is referred to as mechanical because the senses act on their own. We don't have a choice. Right now, you hear the whole ambience of sound. My voice, birds chirping outside, otherwise maybe it's quiet, but whatever other, some occasional, it's all being perceived. None of us do anything in order to register this. It's granted. In the same way, your hand falls on your fabric, chair, bare skin, a sense perception takes place through that tactile experience of a sense of touch. And despite the obviousness of these events and seeming unrelatedness to what we speak about, it is also known as one of the ways to realize the self. It is one of the paths to God realization or to self-realization. Because it follows its own dynamics. Just as in the aforementioned ways with the intellect or the heart, where the intellect is that discriminative power that is here as that sword of discrimination that, equipped with, we can dissect reality and get to the core of it. Just like with the path of devotion or the path of the heart or the path of feeling, the opposite energy is utilized, the energy, the all-embracing, indiscriminate power of the heart. Not all these paths are equally open to everyone, and we should not lie about that. Some people are born equipped already, at birth, we could say, not just upbringing, at birth, certain tendencies, certain qualities. And in the ancient days, to our times, in the cultures where this is clearly understood, one would guide an eager aspirant based on their abilities. If someone has strong legs and jumps and really fast, it will be more fitting for them to develop that in whatever, let's say, enterprise from the domain of sport. Another person has a very strongly developed upper torso, already there. A great swimmer can come out of that person. People who play amazing skills in basketball are not good swimmers and cannot be. Analogy may be a bit too gross and too flat, but it's all too obvious. For people who have come into this world with heart which feels ways through, for them the path of intellect of little use. In fact, it would become a cumbersome affair for someone who is indiscriminate by nature, because love knows no separation, it knows no anything that divides and dissects. Whenever we dissect something in the name of love, we end up in brutalizing that what is here to unite. We know that. So the qualities, different qualities here, are recognized for what they are and applied, therefore, in terms of what is more fitting for someone. When it comes to yoga of perception, and it is, as I am now referring to it third time, spoken of as mechanical path to self-realization. Mechanical because it happens automatically. We don't do anything. Seeing is granted, touch, the sense of touch is granted. Sense of smell is every sense perception acts on our behalves. We don't do anything about it. Therefore it is spoken of as automatic, mechanical. But here, the approach is to take that and turn it into a path of its own. Therefore it's known as the yoga of perception. The yoga of perception is based on the intimacy between the subject and object, intimacy between the observer and the observed, experiencer and that what is being experienced. And it is chief constitutes of Tantric work, Tantric methodologies, Tantric way of applying this for the sake of attaining the lost sense of unity. Because in Tantra there is this hidden dimension which perhaps not too obvious when it comes to other traditions. But Tantra re-emphasizes this, it brings it back from more ancient teachings which were present in the earlier Upanishads and reinstalls them again, brings them back into the rich spiritual landscape of Indian subcontinent, only to spill over across the whole Central Asia, into China, Far East, Japan, Middle East, all other parts, and secretly somehow reaches Europe, where it survives as the Sufi orders of this or that, undercover. The path of perception. And this what the book is about. Camatkāra, the hidden path, speaks to that. Because according to Tantra, whenever there is an act of experience, whenever there is a meeting of the sense perception via organs of cognition with an object of perception, a secret union takes place. That union completes the fullness for what this whole creation is according to some of the highest tenets of Tantric teaching. Certainly, when we speak of Trika Shaivism, else known popularly as Kashmir Shaivism. Each time there is a contact of the senses with sense objects, yoga takes place. Why? Because it's a union. Union through the disunion. Each time, there's an act of union. The full circle is completed here. What is seen as separation in many spiritual circles, where the sense is meant to be constantly carved, pratyahara, withdrew the senses, withdrew it, all that Hatha Yoga, all that Patanjali Yoga, all that non-duality, all this is withdrew. This world is a trap. This world is a crumbs on the table. This is nothing. This doesn't happen. No? Tantric perspective is radically different. The whole point is in this physicality of the world and nowhere else. There's no other doorway to heaven, to God, to the self, other than through the body. At least that's Tantric perspective. And it needs to be, of course, realized. And the trick here, of course, is that it's already realized on our behalf. Because the senses here are considered to be immortals, they dwell in the body. When the body is wear itself out and about to be given back to nature for the elements to linger around free again from this temporal assembly, the dance, the orchestration, we call human life. Senses are wrapping their belongings, and on the way out. Death does not touch them. In the lore it is known of as the great rishis. The rishis who dwell in this body, the immortals. 2, 4, 5, 7. Rishis dwell in the body. The immortals. So, when the hour has come for the body to be given back to the elements, that what here as a chief quality, what animates everything, life force, takes the senses out of the body through respective pathways not known to modern sciences, but known to ancient esoteric sciences. And the show goes on. So that's more or less an universal perspective of what, let's say, served as philosophical background of what the book is based on. And just as an additional, perhaps, point of interest is that in order to put this kind of work forth for a general reader, a lot went into how can that be done, A, for it to be accessible, and also not compromising on the authenticity, let's say, of some of its expression. And therefore, there was quite a bit of to and fro to decide what kind of language to adopt. And there was no way to get away with Sanskrit terms. So, slim as the book is, contains quite few Sanskrit terms. But each time the Sanskrit term is used, there is an equivalent in English immediately. And at the end of the book, we're proud to share, we have included a rich glossary. In our work, we have in our own files, we already have quite a hefty glossary of various terms used in this work. They're not only Sanskrit terms, some of them are from ancient Greek, Latin, Arabic, Japanese, and other languages. Some of them are more known, universally used, others are less known, so we have included these terms that are lesser known for the reader to be able to navigate through the book with greater ease. But we felt to remove these terms would bleach the book, will make it too clinical. Because, forgive me folks, the modern languages, certainly that's the case with English. I do not speak German to speak for it. But I've lived in England long enough, though it's the language I had to learn on the go, since my arrival to the United Kingdom at the age of 25, something like that, in the summer of 1991. I didn't speak that language, so I had to learn as I went along. But one way or another, I was able to read Martin Heidegger in English in just 5 years' time of my life in London. And rereading Friedrich Nietzsche, of whom I spoke earlier today in our discourses, whom I loved and admired since my youth, obviously, reading him in Russian, which is my mother's tongue. So, English language is bereft of a lot of terms. And I have heard the opinion of scholars in the field who worth their salt, that that's the case with most Western languages, with most modern languages. Most modern languages are bereft with the depth of spiritual vocabulary, which at some point was sacrificed on the altar of religious discourses, on the altar of religious sermons. All the terms that are used today, except for few in English language, and I'm sure certainly with German, French, Italian, Spanish, is the same story. Some terms maybe somehow can be used, and then we're stuck with awareness, consciousness, Godhead. Okay, we can sometimes throw, to spice it up, the Lord, absolute, totality. In Sanskrit, there are 1,000 names for Shiva and 1,000 names for Vishnu. There's Vishnu Sahasranama and there's a Shiva Sahasranama, texts where 1,000 names are recited. 4 million, 40 million, and sometimes have been adjusted by Hindus in the group. When they happen to be in the audience, they say that figure is actually much higher. But anyway, 40 million deities. A far cry from one and the only Christian God, and not to forget the Trinity. So I don't want to start mocking I just want to this is an apology for including Sanskrit terms, period. All right? So that's felt authentic. So even the Kava graces Sanskrit term. Camatkāra. It is translated as a sense of astonishment. And not just any sense of astonishment. It's aesthetic astonishment. It's the term which was particularly associated with a great luminary, 10th century sage who lived in India, in Kashmir Valley, and known by the name of Abhinavagupta. We are also indebted to Abhinavagupta for enriching already rich theory of emotions that existed prior to him in Indian arts, known as rasas, with an additional term known as shanta, shanta rasa, the flavor of peace. So all this is in a book, in a short nuggets, those paragraphs, mouthfuls that one can read and leave the book on the side. It's not meant to be read as a continued exposition. It can be read only a page at a time and left. It can be opened any time, preferably, of course, it's good to read it at least once, but it can be opened any time, dare I say, as Tao Te Ching, to serve you in your daily activities as a great reminder of certain things that you own in your pocket, but the value of which maybe is forgotten. Oh, wow. It's here. So, personal story is simple, but let me just maybe say a word or two to that. Personal story is simple. As a visual artist, and this is confession, and I was an avid reader all my life, I devoured the books, ate them for breakfast and dinner, lunch and dinner. I read ferociously since I've learned reading. But nevertheless, as an artist, as a visual artist, there was always a healthy contempt for anything that can be said or written. And I'm not alone in that. If you study the history of art, if you look into these examples, there is something among the painters with regard to the spoken or written word. Because it's a very different discipline. It's a very different domain. Painting does not speak through words. It's a unique form of art. Music unfolds in time, is it not? Any musical composition, no matter how short, unfolds in time. Even the shortest haiku unfolds in time. Painting is experienced at once, as a totality of the event. And that's the uniqueness of visual art. When you look at something, I'm not talking about looking, keep looking and getting more and more from what you see. Certainly, when you come to the Sistine Chapel, it's a lot to see there, a lot to take in. But even with the Sistine Chapel, it's enough to tilt one head up and you behold the entire ceiling in one go. Let alone a small little picture on a wall, a still life or a landscape. It's an instant event like this. So painters have different relationship with the spoken word. Written word, spoken word, all the same. So of course, when this transition took place, I thought I will never write books. And yet I was put immediately, there and then, in a position of having to write a lot. Having to write a lot, because I have corresponded with seekers on a path. Immediately. My life was placed in that role, in that dimension, where people were writing me after these small little gatherings, after the talk went that, oh, you know what, okay. First, the community of the meditators. First, that TM community. The advanced meditators, TM seeders. Rich correspondence ensued for many years. 600 letters at some point I had to count, and the idea rose, my first book would be that, Letter to a Seeder, where I would dare to put something under a single cover, perhaps a selection of these letters, which will serve to fellow seekers of truth. At some point it was even announced, it was in my first website, there was a kind of synopsis page, and what's about, and the book is in the making. Hold your horses, it's coming. No, it never came. Never came into existence. This was a long time ago. Then there was another project. We decided, by then I already started to get a small little group of associates. Essays on consciousness. Very straightforward. Something which can be really, again, put into use, and that's what I thought would be the first book. And that was about 10 years ago. And it was even announced at one of my interviews for Conscious TV with Renata McNay. The book is on its way, and it's coming. Never came. Then there were other projects. Community started to grow, slowly but surely. First, dedicated students who would last, not just few months, stuck around for longer. The grand project came into idea. So the first book would be to blow everyone out of the picture. A major exposition on Tantra, like a Bible for today. 5 years based on discourses delivered live, 11 transcribers team, a complex, intricate structure of tracing what is transcribed, what's edited, everything, all perhaps now somewhere in our archives. Title already, everything, subtitle, chapters, exciting. Picture, my picture was chosen. The only time this brings me a reminder is when I visit Freiburg and I see that picture in Sundari's room on her puja, because that's the picture that was supposed to be. Anyway, to cut the story short, there was another book, ABC of Spirituality, based on Q&A, which was put together by one time, prolonged period of time, some 4 years, my assistant secretary, and she just put it together behind the scenes. It's still all there. ABC of Spirituality. I thought it's an awesome title, don't you think? Don't worry, it's all copyrighted, so you can't use it. We bought all domains of the names just in case, in advance. So, just to cut the story short, when it comes to Camatkāra, that book also, the idea for that book came about 4 years ago, maybe 3. Time flies, so I don't know, 4 to 3 years. And slowly we plowed our way through. And I'm just saying this, so beneath the veneer of this slim, rather, book, there's a lot of work. It's the outcome of entire team working on it tirelessly. Many people, several editors. People will come, get burned out next. Finally, until I have to read the first proofread version and realize there's no book. It's all need to be plowed again through. It needs to be rewritten, enriched, and chucked and chopped. So eventually somehow it was done, and it began to feel as spaces. There is now space. There's this space between what is in the book and here, and it felt okay. We are ready to give it a life. And this book, I'm very happy to also mention, perhaps there's no harm to say, announce, heralding us launching our own publishing house. Yes! Our own publishing house is coinciding with the book coinciding, or the publisher. You don't know which one is coinciding with what. But the fact is, it's the first book published by our own publishing house, which is given the name Song. And we had this name many years ago. And I'm glad and happy that we've kept the domain. Yes, this is the book. It's the limited edition, hard cover. Well, now I'm going to start selling the book. No. No, that's not the idea. The idea is this. It's a limited edition. It will be followed by soft cover, which is equally, if not more beautiful in terms of its pictorial qualities, because this is meant to be as simple as a good cigar. In fact, the cover cloth is called Tabakbrun in German. It's printed in Germany, in Potsdam, by Druckerie Rus, and it cost us a hell of a lot of money, but we feel it's worth every penny. We're very happy. So we will bring here to Gut Saunstorf in July when we come back here for a longer program. We're coming back here, some of you know, for a 10-day program. This was a short one. This is one of our shorter modules. And in July, we will bring the soft cover version, which has the color, which totally has different physical appearance. It has color picture on it, and this one meant to be like, if you put it somewhere, it doesn't spoil your interior. You can even put it next to your bed, and it's not going to cause you nightmares. Wake up. What was it? So just like very, very subdued, very, very, maybe too subdued, but it's our first book, so please be tolerant to our endeavor. And it's not an autobiography based. It's not pretend to be a scholarly work. It's simply communicating my deepest passion and something that felt as coming full circle. Whether this has come through clear or not, it is for each and every one of you to know. But I don't think there is anything else that needs to be added. Everything else is in the book. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share.
So the book deals with the different paths as you just described them. Is this correct, or is it just the tantric path which you describe in the book, or what is it?
No, none of the above.
None of this?
None of this, no.
What is it then?
So, what is it then? What is it? You probably have heard that my spiritual name is Vamadeva. Yes? No? You have probably heard that my spiritual name is Vamadeva. Okay, so it's that. Vamadeva. Vamadeva. It's a Sanskrit term, Sanskrit word. It's one of the faces of Shiva, one of the 5 faces of Shiva. He has 5 distinctive faces. And Vamadeva is simply translated as the one whose God is beautiful. The one whose God is beautiful. So this book is about that. Forgive me, please. It's not that I want to appear sounding mysterious. It's not my intention at all. But I cannot begin to speak what the book is about, because then I will start narrating my next book. You see? Maybe that's a good idea. So then we'll take an opportunity, and already second book is already in the making. But I cannot speak about this book in any other terms other than what the book is. Any attempt for me to say what's inside the book should be done by someone else. You see? So if you want me to read an excerpt, it will be easier if you can open a copy, and I believe copies circulating around the hands, and you can read any passage. It may pickle your curiosity, or it may be otherwise, and you will feel that what a lot of mumbo jumbo, you see? So I cannot possibly, this is not to sell the book, you see? I want to be very clear, it's not to sell the book. The whole thing is not, it's to share something that's what's behind the book. You see? Yeah. It may sound again somewhat maybe tad lacking of sense of modesty, but when I had enough time to detach from the book, and deliberately I didn't go through any final manuscripts except when it was all finalized last year. I wanted to read it from the pages, and I so far read only a few pages. You know, the book has been bound already for a while, and each time I read, I'm deeply surprised in a very, very nice way. You see? So to me, it has a completely life of its own. You want me to say something more to that? The best experiences that artists can have, authentic experiences, and I've known that from a very early age. Not all the way back because I was classically trained in art since the age of 12. Classically trained properly, in the form of an apprentice, as it happened in Europe since the time of the Middle Ages. The boy is taken by his mother to a man, you take care of him because I cannot. I have to make a living. He's on the streets, smoking pot. Okay? Mother is fed up. Take care of this kid. He's a good kid, but he's going to waste himself. And I end up in a studio of an artist who was a martial artist on top of that, master in Kung Fu, who was a great piano player, a poet, and tragically killed. Everything I need to know as a kid was given to me by this man. Everything. I'm indebted to him because he fanned the flames of passion to see beauty everywhere. So when I begin to do first, let's say, experiments in art, already with my move to the West, somewhere at the very end of the 80s, first in Poland, Warsaw, then London. I remember this working on something, then you take that painting from the easel, you put it on a wall, you sit down, you look at it, and it's as if it's always existed. And you've nothing to do with it. Your hands are still covered in paint. You know? You wipe your nose, you wipe your eyes. It's a tearful experience because something happened. 25 times before that it didn't happen. Now it happened. You're looking at something that came through you. So when people will ask me to describe what's happening in this painting, you know, I wanted to do like Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther. Look at this! You know, it was like that. It's like, how can I begin to describe something I have nothing to do with? It came through, you see? An authentic act. It's the most humbling, beautiful experience one can have. But thank you for a question that invoked this response. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. Yeah.